Greetings everybody, and welcome to the update 1.54 update. This is an update that almost didn't happen due to some issues, but that's been solved now. So, 5 new cars, some interesting additions, and an interesting unexpected change as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. Kick things off with the Suzuki Jimny Sierra JC. Now, while the previously added XC model was a K truck, whatever you call it there, this one kind of exceeds that a bit since it doesn't need to conform to that and is more of a global market model there. And while the 100 horsepower upgrade to the 63 horsepower doesn't seem that much, there does feel like a little bit more of a punch to this one. And next, the Porsche 911 Turbo S. This is the first time I've driven a Turbo S in, well, any racing game, because it seems like I just have never been lucky to have one that features one of them. So this is a first even for me. And the car, well, it surprisingly doesn't have much of that pendulum effect that I had talked about when I talked about the rough model that was introduced in one of the earlier updates. So it feels a bit smoother on brakes, on acceleration of course, and it also has an interesting sound as well, at least to my ears. It's hard to describe it, but it sounds a bit more metallic-y in comparison to the other 911s. And either way, it's a really cool addition. And it already stands out on its own uniquely just on that. And speaking of Porsches, move on to something that's a little bit more electric, literally. That is the Mission X. Now this car has been an interesting talking point, both with its addition to the game and in real life, particularly the portion about how it was more or less a sort of toe in the water as to what Porsche's own customers would want. And apparently not a lot of them are interested in the whole electric thing. So, just something interesting worth noting. But as far as it goes in this game, how it handles, it is a bit of a handful. I found the power to be probably the most explosive, well, at least second only to the Genesis Vision GT Group 1 car. But it's definitely a car where you have to be very much more heavy on the brakes and much more ginger on the throttle there. Because it seems like at first it won't do anything, but then it just explodes very quickly. So, be careful when you drive this. It's a handful. Next is the Ford Escort RS from 1992, I believe. And what an incredible car to drive. This is obviously one of the more popular requests from the community. And this is actually the first time it's been included in this series, not as a rally car. So, a pretty interesting addition there. As far as handling goes, it feels pretty good. Good on brakes, good on throttle, good on acceleration. It feels really nice to drive. And it's probably something I'm going to be driving a whole lot. And that's before I even get to tuning. Thank goodness. Who knows what on earth I can do with tuning on this car. I haven't attempted it yet. But fun, nonetheless. And now comes this, the star of the update, both for opposing reasons, is the Mercedes W196. And the most expensive car out of all the cars in there at a whopping 20 million credits. Which for people who've been playing the game for a while, that's nothing. But for people like me who've only owned this game for a few months, a bit brutal. It's just lucky that I was able to get it, even with the problems that temporarily delayed this review. But as far as driving characteristics are concerned, and I've only driven it on the tires it came with, it's incredible. It is just seriously incredible how it does everything. How it brakes, how it corners, how it accelerates. There's just no drama to this car. It just does it. And I'm not necessarily sure that it's reflective of its real life performances, and maybe in comparison to all the other cars on the grid, maybe it was like that. But what a ride. I guess it is worth the 20 million credits. Now, of course, in this update, there were 3 races added, and you'll notice a common theme about them. The first being the Jimny Cup race at Grand Valley Speedway, or Highway 1, I should say, south. And this was part of one of the weekly challenges. And so we go to the next one in America, and that's, of course, the Porsche Cup. And this was at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. And that was in last week's weekly challenges. And then the final one takes us all the way over to the Asia-Oceania region. But it's not in Japan, it's in Australia. And it's here at Mount Panorama, the Race of Turbo Sports Cars. An event that, you guessed it, is in this week's weekly challenges. Or at least before things change over Thursday night. But, yeah, these were the 3 new races added to the world map here. Obviously, as per usual, turbocharged car, 700 pp or less, you know the drill for this race. And of course, well, it was there last week. Obviously, as this video, it's no longer there. But the one thing this update did introduce was these races here, where you could get 1 million credits for winning them. Unfortunately, it was a one-time only thing, but you could do that. And there's one race, the Spa Frankenshop race for the Manufacturers Cup Championship, where all the cars in the championship were available to select. And of course, the Nürburgring 24-hour race in the Red Bull X2019 competition for the Nations Cup. Obviously, these simulated the World Finals races there. And again, 1 million credits for completing them, so quite a lot. Of course, new races for the Sophie AI were added, and one of those 2 was here at Trial Mountain, and available on the full course layout. And the second one, just like with one of the races, one of the new races added, we go to the Asia-Oceania region. This time we are in Japan, but none of the tracks. Instead, right in Tokyo Expressway, the east clockwise layout. So, those were the 2 new Sophie AI races added, for those that continue to enjoy Sophie. And in Escapes, we have a new set from Colorado. Sadly, no, that set does not include anything from Pikes Peak. Tease really continues, doesn't it? But even so, even if you're not necessarily a fan of Escapes, not necessarily a fan of Photo Boat in general, and anything, you have to admit, these are pretty amazing photos. Really good ones there. And it's not too surprising, since Colorado is just a really, really beautiful place there. I have been there myself in person, so I recognize a few of these spots, not all of them, but I've been on vacation with family before, so some memories are brought up with these. Really spectacular layout, and I would recommend you go there if you get the chance. Just be aware if you're going to go up on the mountains. Temperature changes are a thing. And of course, new wheels, I should say, and in the form of newcomers Rotiform. They bring 7 new wheels to the game, so if you fancy some new wheels after a little while, here's some to look through. And I've already got some ideas for the 3rd and 4th one, but yeah, some interesting additions there from them. but not just from Rotiform, but from 3 other wheel companies here, first of which being KFC. And in addition to the first wheels that are already in the game, there's an additional 8 that they have now added. And I'll personally admit, I've added one of the first 2 to one of my trucks there, because I thought it looked fantastic. So, worth looking into. Second one of those is Motegi Wheels. In addition to their default ones they already had in the game, there's 3 new ones that have been added. Out of these here, I haven't found a vehicle specifically where I would like to equip these MR158 Tsubakis, but those are an option. And finally, American Racing, who now have 6 new wheels in addition to the 5 that were already present in the game. And they all looks pretty spectacular. I gotta say, the final 2, I already have some ideas to which cars I could fit those 2. But yeah, so some brand new wheels, both in the form of a new company as well as 3 others offering some new ones. And of course, much like Polk High when they were added, a new logo was also added in the livery editor. Obviously you can see the new Brembo logo added in there, and you can see Polk High, and there's also Rotiform right there in both black and white form there. So if you're rocking those wheels and repping that company there, there's an option. And here's that quirky addition that I was talking about. So after a decade, and I wish I was joking, the first Vision GT gets a cockpit view. And before you ask, no, the racing series doesn't have it. But hey, it's something. Anyhow, that's it for this update 1.54 review. Overall, an interesting update, content-wise, some changes-wise, and unexpected, as was the case with the addition of that cockpit view. Anyways, if you enjoyed this, give it a like, subscribe, and stay tuned as I make more of these videos. And I will see you next time.